If you're a fan of Monty Python's Flying Circus, you saw her help Michael Palin find an argument and Eric Idle arrange a holiday. You might have even seen her go from happy and in love to shocked and devastated as her boyfriend sang the Lumberjack song. And you might have even seen her fall for a marriage guidance counselor while married to poor little Arthur Putey. She was in all of those skits, scenes, and more because once the Wacky Python boys met Carol Cleveland, they knew they had their girl. She's joining me now on the show today to talk all about it. Carol, welcome to the program, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, well, it's nice to be joining you, even though I'm not sitting next to you, which would be even better, but
that would
I'm
be
here.
Well, we'll have to do sitting next to one another next time when you come down to the States again.
Next time. Right now I'm sitting next to my little doggie.
Well, that's a good place to be, too. Well, you have a very special bond with the Python guys, obviously. How did becoming part of their group come about for you?
Well, it was all a matter of being in the right place at the right time, I think. I had somehow gotten myself into a comedy run, which wasn't intentional, because when I came out of drama school, rather, the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts, I had no intention of going into comedy. I never saw myself as a funny person. I still don't. I wanted to be a straight dramatic actress, film star ideally, but that didn't quite work out, but never mind. I've been in the business for about 6-7 years, playing leading lady roles on television, mainly, theater as well, but mainly on television in many other cult series like The Saint and The Avengers and Randall and the Hot Turk, The Persuaders. I know you've had all these over there. And I was playing the leading lady. And it was about 9 years into the show business when I got my first comedy role at the BBC television centre. And I did this little, what I've always called, I was a glamour stooge, basically. That's what I've always referred to it as. Didn't have a lot to do in this first. It was a comedy show. It was a Roy Hudd show. And I wasn't much more than a glamour stooge. And that led to more and more. I suddenly found myself doing lots of these glamour stooge roles at the BBC. Been doing this for about a year. And it was at that time that the Pythons, well, not the Pythons themselves, but the director-producer of the first series was looking for a female to be in they'd only written 5 episodes at that stage, and the director was going to be taking over. Ian McNaughton was doing something else, so it was the producer, John Howard Davies, who was directing the first 5, and he cast me to be in the first 4 episodes just from my work at the BBC. And that's where it was supposed to end. That's all I was supposed to do. So what happened is, by the time we got to the 3rd episode, the Pythons realized that I wasn't just a glamour stooge.
Yeah, exactly.
That I was talented. I could be funny in my own right. I was good at taking direction. I was quite happy to do whatever was required and to be as silly as they wanted me to be, whatever. They liked me a lot. And when they heard that I was only going, I was doing my last episode, I said at rehearsals one day, "This is it, guys, it's bye-bye." And they said, What? And, cut a long story short, they came together and they said, "No way, we want you." And so I owe it really to the guys that I, hung on in there all these years.
Well, and I think that's one of the many things that's really impressive about you is how there were plenty of times where other women came in to do smaller things and the guys had a chance to work with them and all, but when all's said and done, when they needed a woman to be a major part of the skit, they wanted you and nobody else. Nobody else fit the same way.
Well, that's exactly what they said, because Ian McNaughton, who was taking over direction, he had his own ideas about, who was going to cast for the girly bits. And so the guy said, "Well, look, this is what we do. You cast who you like. It's just what we call a coffinus bit, But if someone to actually do some acting, it's Carol. We use Carol." And that's how it worked out.
That's great. Well, what are some of the things you remember most about working with the guys?
Oh, gosh, well, I could go on forever, couldn't I? Lots of wonderful memories. But, I mean, they were very good to me because by their own admission, they didn't have a lot to offer me in the early days. And I think Michael was the first one, it was about episode 3, when he came up to me and apologized to me for not having more for me to do. But he said, Carol, we're just not very good at writing parts for women, which they weren't. I mean, they were all right. They wrote good parts for the older woman, which they played so beautifully themselves. But when writing roles for sort of pretty young girls, they really didn't have a clue what to do. So they were always apologizing, and from that moment onwards, they were always trying their best to find more for me to do, and they would slot me into sketches where I wasn't actually meant to be. Like, for instance, one comes to mind. We were doing a read-through, and there was a jungle sketch, and they suddenly realized at the read-through that they were one male short, and said, they were going to call on one of they had a sort of repertoire of people. They said, and so I said, I think it was Michael, said, no, we've got Carol, let's use Carol. So in this particular sketch, we're in the jungle, and I'm there wearing, just as they are, in these khaki shorts and a flip helmet and a big handlebar moustache stuck on me. But obviously still a woman with the false eyelashes and the lipstick.
Yeah.
But talking like that, pretending to be a bloke like that, getting very funny looks from them in the sketch. So and I played, when they need a sparring partner for Graham Chapman, who was a boxer, and again they were going to get one of their repertoire. They said, no, we'll use Carol. So I'm his sparring partner, and they got me in wherever they could. So they were very good about utilizing my talents, which got better as it went on, and they were very, very protective of me. And on one hand they treated me like one of the guys, but on the other hand I was the little sister they were very protective of, and always had my best interest at heart, which is good.
Now, while growing up, your mom had married a man who was in the United States Air Force, and you spent some time in Texas and in California, so you got to know a little bit of the American culture back then. So can you talk a little bit about what it was like to find out that you and Monty Python had this new life, this new popularity here in the U.S. when everything exploded on the scene here?
As far as America's concerned, that was not anticipated. In fact, in the early days when it was first suggested that, we should take something over to America, they just didn't think it was going to work. I mean, just thought, well, no. The Americans just won't get it. It's not their sort of humor. It won't work at all. And then it was a stage show. I mean, it really was the day that we knew, the night that we knew that Python was big in America, which really took everyone by surprise, was our first American gig on stage, which is at the New York City Center. And the night we went out, the first night on stage, as the lights went up, and there was this whooping and wailing and cheering and clapping and screaming and whistling and stamping up and down, and I thought, my God, what's going on? And we came out on stage, and we could hardly get a word out every time we tried to do a sketch, because everybody knew every word, every sketch. And you thought, how did this happen? I mean, but from that moment on, we thought, well, wow, yes, this is big in America. But as I say, very unexpected.
Did you find that there was kind of a difference in fans in England and the United States?
Well, in the early days, I think there was a misunderstanding about, and I think maybe there still is in various parts, because people say, oh, that Monty Python, oh, he's just great. No.
They think there really is a Monty Python.
No, and I think they were referring to John.
Yeah.
Because there was a confusion, and people thought John Cleese was Monty Python.
Oh.
And I think even here, when it very first started, the first television series, John was the one that stood out, literally. I mean, he is the tallest,
Yeah.
But he stood out in other ways because he always hated the dressing up. He hated wearing lots of makeup and wigs and moustaches and things like that. So he always played the roles that he didn't have to. He played the lawyers and the doctors and the whatever. So all the others you see sort of heavily disguised in wigs and whatever, but John usually always looked like John. So he was the one that people immediately recognized. I mean, there was, certainly for the first series, people would say to me, well, which one is Eric? Which one is Michael? But they knew who John was, okay? And so I think when it came over to America, people confused John Cleese with Monty Python.
Interesting.
They said, "Oh, I love that Monty Python. He's so funny." No, it's the name of the show. And the other thing is, I think that the Americans always have been much more cult-orientated than we are. I mean, the Brits, we're not really into our cults here.
Yeah.
But the Americans like their cults, yeah. I think once an American gets hold of a cult, it never lets go.
That's very true.
When I go over to the States and I represent the Pythons at these conventions, TV film, conventions, weekends, and I've been to several in America, and I sit there, as on the celebrity area and sign photos and things, and the Americans are always so delighted to see me. They're happy to see me here as well. I get a much bigger reception in America. Well, really over-the-top reception. Just so thrilled that I'm there. And even now, some people say, "Oh, that Monty Python, he's better."
That Monty guy, he sure is talented.
That Monty guy, he's so better.
What was it like being recognized as a member of the group when Monty Python was in its heyday? Did people just come up to you and try to start sketches with you on the street?
No. I think that sort of was, they did that with the guys, well, mainly with John. Poor John was the one that always got it more than anyone else, because every time you were walking down the street, there'd be somebody, and there probably still is, somebody who'd say, "Oh, you do your city walk."
Yeah.
And the best advice I can give to anyone is don't ask. Don't ask him to do it, because you'll get a short shot. But no, I haven't had people come up to me and say, "Oh, do this and that." I've had some people say that I'm wearing a lot better than they are.
Oh, yes. Well, that's generally true of women over men anyway.
And even the Pythons say that. When we had the 40th anniversary of Python 2 years ago now, it seems like this was 8 months ago, but 2 years ago was the 40th, and we were on stage here in England at the Royal Albert Hall, and it was an amazing night.
Yeah.
But even the Pythons were saying to me backstage, "Carol, how do you do it? We're all aging and you're not. What's going on here?" But it was an amazing night, and we ended the evening. It was an oratorio that Eric Idle had written called "Not the Messiah."
Oh, yes.
He's a very naughty boy. And Eric has already done this, performed this oratorio several times around the world. But this time it was adapted. They decided for the 40th that they perform his oratorio, but slot the Pythons into it. We had opera singers. We had a full orchestra and chorus and opera singers and bagpipers. It was just incredible.
Wow.
And every time a Python would appear, the audience would go crazy.
Oh, yeah.
And we ended the evening with a lumberjack song. Now, if someone had told me 40 years earlier, "Carol, you'll be doing this lumberjack song, standing there wearing this gingham dress with your hair in bunches, with ribbons around your hair and freckles, and you'll be standing on stage saying this silly line, 'Oh, Bevis, I thought you were so rugged.'"
I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I sleep all night, I work all day.
He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
I cut down trees, I eat my lunch, I go to the lavatory. On Wednesdays I go shopping and have buttered scones for tea.
He cuts down trees, he eats his lunch, he goes to the lavatory. On Wednesdays he goes shopping and has buttered scones for tea. He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
I cut down trees, I skip and jump, I like to press wildflowers. I put on women's clothing and hang around in bars.
He cuts down trees, he skips and jumps, he likes to press wildflowers. He puts on women's clothing and hangs around in bars. He's a lumberjack and he's okay. He sleeps all night and he works all day.
I cut down trees, I wear high heels, suspenders and a bra. I wish I'd been a girlie, just like my dear mama. I cut down trees, wear high heels, suspenders and a bra. I wish I'd been a girlie, just like my dear mama.
Oh, Bevis! And I thought you were so rugged!
40 years, and here we are, still being ridiculously silly and giggling away. I mean, we're having such fun, being really, really silly on stage.
Yeah, I mean, and, you were talking about the cult thing here in America. I mean, every single American Monty Python fan can sing that song. In fact, in talking about you in the beginning of the show, I said that since you were the real female in the troupe, that you're the person that can dress in women's clothing and hang around in bars and it'd be just fine. Nobody would care.
Well, I suppose if Graham were alive, he may still be doing it, but he's not. So.
That's true. So you're doing that, and you still go around and, as you said, represent Python. Is there anything else that you'd like people to know that you're involved in now?
I do mainly theatre work now. The television's a little bit quiet. I mean, it comes up. I mean, I'll do the odd commercial, which I've got one coming out soon. I concentrate on doing my own shows, as a lot of actors do. We have our own shows to fill in the gap, because the business is, we're in the same situation here as everywhere else, I mean, everything is, everything's suffering, and certainly show business, there's less work. There's just less work at the moment. Producers don't have the money to put on big-scale productions, so they're putting on shows with a much smaller cast, and small theaters are closing. Things are tough.
Yeah.
So, like a lot of actors, I have my own shows, my solo shows. I have 2 of them, and one of them is called Pom Poms Up.
Yep.
It's a semi-autobiographical, humorous, melodic, informative, slightly outrageous look at the glamour business.
Okay.
And I present it as a glamour masterclass. So I've been doing that show a lot recently, and what I'm doing at the moment is getting ready. I wouldn't plan to take it on the road. I've been just doing it for the odd one
Sure.
off. But I want to take it on tour and possibly to the Edinburgh Festival this year.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
when I'm not doing something for someone else, I concentrate on doing my own little solo shows.
Cool. Well, if that goes on tour, we'll definitely look for that. And I'd like to let our listeners know that you can find out even more about Carol at her website, carolcleveland.com. You can also purchase CDs and downloads of the skits taken from the Instant Record Collection, which then became the Instant CD Collection, and now, of course, you can download them digitally. And, of course, there are numerous DVDs out there with Carol and the guys and the Monty Python films, as well as the episodes of Monty Python's Flying Circus. Carol, it's been a real pleasure to talk with you today as a longtime Python fan and as a guy who loves a lady with a British accent. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Well, I've enjoyed it, Scott. I've enjoyed it. Hello, this is Carol Cleveland of Monty Python, and you're listening to The Critic Show with Scott Murray. Now, do you want the 5-minute argument or the full half hour?
Let's get this thing clear. I quite definitely told you.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You didn't.
Did.
Oh, look, this isn't an argument.
Yes, it is.
No, it isn't. It's just contradiction.
No, it isn't.
It is.
It is not.
Look, you just contradicted me.
I did not.
Oh, you did.
No, no, no.
You did just then.
Nonsense.